back, everybody, to the final credits. I am Death, the Destroyer of Worlds, and this is the Oppenheimer review.
India is not going to be happy about this.
Okay, Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's newest, biggest movie, probably his biggest movie, honestly, but one of the biggest movies of the year. We're reviewing it, coming off of the Barbenheimer weekend. Wow. All I could say is that this is his magnum opus, man. There is just so much to take away from this movie. Basically, just to give the premise of at least what I was not expecting from this movie. I was expecting more of just like a kind of like an almost like biopic documentary of just like the making of the bomb, of the atomic bomb. We got like a full-on character study of Oppenheimer as a man, as a person, as an inventor, as the theory physicist that he was, and my God, it was just like I said, just so much to take out of this. Starring Cillian Murphy, who killed it, no pun intended. Starring him and literally everybody else. We'll get into that cast in a moment, but before we do, like, what are your general thoughts, guys? What did you take out of this? How did this movie hit you in the face with its atomic bomb?
Here's the thing. It's a long movie. It's 3 hours long. And I feel like, how like sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, oh, they could have cut this scene shorter. They could have made this shorter. They could have done this. They could have done that. And you can, take off another 10, 15 minutes.
Nope.
That movie, you cannot cut anything.
No.
I'm sure there's a 4 or 5 hour cut of this movie. Release
the Nolan cut. Yeah.
But no. But seriously, like, look, realistically, the movie is like, you sit in that movie and your eyes are glued to that screen and you're like, what's going to happen next? How are we going to get from this point to that point? And it's such a satisfying movie to watch. You watch it and you feel like, wow, this is what this guy had to deal with, had to do during a time of war. And I think it was phenomenal.
With this Barbie movie, I've never seen so much pink in my... Wait, did I do it again?
Yes. Keep messing up the two halves of Barbenheimer.
But anyway, so Oppenheimer, one thing I emphasize in our review videos with the trailers leading up to this, like I kept saying World War II, but it was a war movie, yes, mixed with a biopic, mixed with a history film, mixed with a spy thriller, mixed with a political thriller, all meshed together. One thing that was a little hard for me at first was confusing because it kept going back and forth between time periods of Oppenheimer's life. But once I got a grasp of that, I was able to follow along. And the visual of this was just beautifully shot, like certain parts being in black and white for one time period and then being in full color to put on emphasis of the events going on those particular scenes.
You want to know a fun fact with that? You want to know why certain scenes were black and white? The scenes that were in color were apparently the scenes where Oppenheimer himself was aware of what was going on, because he was, obviously part of those scenes that were in color. The scenes that were not in color, you would notice, usually revolve around like Robert Downey Jr.'s character. I forget the guy's first name. His last name is Strauss. That didn't involve his Oppenheimer's perspective, or even if he was there, it was something that he just wasn't cognitively aware of. So everything that was in black and white, that was actually technically the third person documentary part of the movie, and the color scenes were his character study first person view of the movie, which I thought, when I heard that, I was like, that was like as if like the movie wasn't mind blowing enough already. Like that, I thought was really like crazy. But that was the point of the black and white versus the color scenes.
That's really interesting, actually.
Yeah.
So in my first impression, best movie of the year, straight up. No ifs, no ands, no buts. There is a however, though, because later on this year, there are 2 other contenders coming out, which I think are probably going to be up for movie of the year, but I feel Oppenheimer is going to eke it out and just win that one. But yeah, like this one, like we said, Spade mentioned earlier that like it is a long movie, but nothing can be taken out of this movie at all because it is like as perfect as is. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Everyone did a phenomenal job, like with the directing, the script, the cinematography, literally everything. And if I may now, go into what we were planning to talk about later. Guess what? It's now later. The cast. I said to Johnny in the theater, this is the new Saving Private Ryan. Now I say that because in Saving Private Ryan, there were a lot of faces that you did recognize just by seeing the movie in theaters. And then there were faces that you recognize later on that like got on to do like better things and stuff. And I felt like this movie had a cast of characters from every which way. I wish this was like its own MCU crossover event in a way.
I was just thinking the same thing. Yes.
So many different faces in here coming together. Surprise faces too that we weren't even privy to, that we realized the day later that like, oh hey, did you know this guy was so and so? And it's like, what? It was a Tom Cruise Tropic Thunder moment of like,
yes,
wait, that played this guy?
Yes.
Blew my mind. Honestly, the best movie of the year.
And do you guys really feel, I mean, this is how I feel. I feel, actually, you know what? Forget about my feelings. Here's what. I'm putting a nomination in for Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. as Best Supporting Actor for the Academy
Awards.
Yes.
I am definitely
not even a
nomination for that.
As of right now, yes.
Not even a question.
They could honestly clean house. What you said with Robert Downey Jr. Best Supporting Actor, Cillian Murphy.
For
best actor, best picture, obviously, best sound.
Yes.
Okay,
so
this
sound, man, that sound, that whole
sound design
was flipping amazing.
You guys,
that was the first thought in my mind when, like, out of the theater, like, was like, okay, if this movie is winning an award for anything, it's sound design. Period. Like, on top of everything else, it could win an award for. That's coming first. But
now, best screenplay. I don't know if it's best adopted screenplay based on real life events or best original screenplay.
I think adopted. I think it would be adopted.
Yeah. You could put in, I don't know if she'll win, but I could definitely see best actress, Emily Blunt, best supporting actress, Florence Pugh. The list goes on and on. Oh,
Florence
Pugh.
Florence Pugh. Oh my God.
She's going to find you and she's going to throw you off the bridge.
I'm still feeling the effects of the bomb from the movie.
Which is the next thing we're talking about.
I was gonna say, yes, that's what we need to talk about.
I know he's probably not gonna win because he has to go head to head with Robert Downey Jr., but Matt Damon I have to throw in there for best supporting actor as well.
Actually, he was really good. He was really good.
And he's perfect to play a hot-headed authority figure. And this is the second movie in a row I've seen with him where he absolutely kills it. He's more of obviously he's a supporting actor here when he was more the lead in Air, but here he was phenomenal as always. Matt Damon has grown to become one of my favorite actors.
He has grown into such a character actor, like a great character actor. Between, like, like you mentioned him in Air too. Like I'm starting to notice that trend with him a lot now, that he's just really taking those more like out there characters that, like, really demand like a strong, vibrant performance, and he usually like delivers really well with it. So he's been really good.
Before we move on, so I talk about the bombing and the special effects. To finish up about the great cast, on screen, when we would see somebody, we're like, oh, they probably just have a small part, and then they will go back to that person to see how much of a big role they have to add to the story. I thought that was so well done, because you could easily throw a million faces on screen just for a cameo, but like, no, he's from earlier. Now he has this big thing to say to help tie the story more together. Like, holy you know what? Like that was so well done by Nolan.
Rami Malek was definitely like the best example for what you just said.
Absolutely, yes.
He showed up like his first scene where he showed up, he didn't even speak. And I was just like, they really just like gave him that role.
Did they just waste Rami Malek? Like, are you insane?
Like, oh my God.
He's a background character.
I was like, how did Nolan pull that one off? But then he comes back later on in a scene where he has to like give a testimony. I'm like, oh, okay, like this is his like big moment in the movie. But yeah, no, you're right though. But you know what? And I think that's why we had so many cameos, like famous cameos in this movie. Even if they didn't have big roles, we had big names, like Academy Award winner names in this movie. Because I think Christopher Nolan knew that this movie has so many moving parts and so many characters, like with dialogue and everything, that they'd be shifting away from and then going back to later in the movie, that you needed a like familiar face to remember, like when they did go back to that movie. Because if Rami Malek was like some random guy that they got for the small role, you probably wouldn't remember him by the time they brought him back into that testimony scene. Because otherwise it just would have been like, oh, who's that guy again? Oh, who's like, yeah, oh yeah, I think I remember that dude. What did he say again? But when you have a big Academy Award winner face attached to it, then you're like, oh yeah, wow, we just saw him before. Like, now, what's he doing now?
And Josh Hartnett was another scene stealer. Like, I didn't recognize him at first.
Yeah. Dude, like, came out of nowhere with everything that he did. I didn't think he was going to have as big of a role that he actually had. He had in this, and he stole it too.
I mean, we haven't seen him in like 20 years, right? And he still looks like like he did back then. So
yeah. So let's
must have taken a nap.
Let's talk about let's talk about that scene. Let's talk about the scene that most people came to the theater for.
Yeah.
The Trinity testing of the atomic bomb.
Wow,
man. Just the direction, like this was Christopher Nolan at his peak, in my opinion. Like this was his, like everything was on point. Everything, like the attention to detail. Again, the sound design. Just the level of tension leading up to the actual explosion. Like just the choreography.
Did you mention sound design by any chance?
No, I don't think
sound
design.
Johnny, mention it again.
Sound design. Oh my God! But like. When that bomb went off, man, like the decision to keep it silent and just hearing like just their breathing, like or Oppenheimer's breathing until, because they were like miles and miles away from the actual explosion. So by the time the shockwave actually hit, that delay, when it hit you, it freaking hit you. And this movie is loud, by the way. By design, I can tell. But like this movie is loud as it is. And when that explosion, that shockwave comes through the speakers, everybody jumped. I definitely jumped. Everybody was like, whoa, like it actually hit.
Not only that, it's so loud that people who were watching Barbie were complaining that they could hear the atomic bomb going off in their theater.
Yeah. I don't think we experienced that when we watched Barbie, but that would have been hilarious, honestly.
Watch, it probably happened as we were all laughing our butts off.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Please continue.
I was just gonna say, I also love too just the constant use of like the feet stamping, that like that adds attention. It was like I feel like Christopher Nolan likes to do that a lot, like make some sort of theme around a sound effect and use it for pure tension, kind of like how he used the violence for like the Joker and the Dark Knight, and I think either Inception or some other movie I'm thinking of where he used like a similar like tick, just to kind of like build that tension. Like that the feet stamping thing was like really like one of those moments where like every time he used it, it was like you felt like you can cut the tension in the room with a knife.
Yep.
So
even Dark Knight Returns with that chanting of him.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. But getting back to the explosion for a hot second, so it's no secret there was no CGI used in that explosion at all. That is all just pure, unadulterated explosion that we saw, which, knowing that, seeing what we saw, mind blown right there, number one. Number two, something that I at least thought, or like, I would have thought would have been common sense in this movie, that like, okay, the explosion is probably going to be the finale of the movie, the big thing, and then maybe just like a little dialogue at the end of the explosion, roll credits, we had another hour in this movie. I did not think that we were going to have that at all, because at that point, and not that I wasn't disinterested, but I did look down at my phone and I realized this is a 3-hour movie and we're at the 2-hour mark. What else can we do with another hour in this movie about a movie making the bomb? And my God, that's when I feel like we got all the performances that we really just said, like tongue tied. That's how I feel about like everything in that last hour of the movie. Just gobsmacked. That's what I am.
I love the foreshadowing leading up to the explosion, to that epic night, with the visual from the point of view of Oppenheimer, to see the fire, to see the explosion, as that tease leading up to the pivotal moment on test night. I thought that was so beautifully shot and spread throughout the movie leading up to the test night in the desert in New Mexico. That did it for me as like maybe the best part of the movie, but it's hard to pick your favorite part. So epic.
I can agree with that. Like I said, that was like Christopher Nolan at his peak with the way he shot and built up that scene.
So do you guys want to hear some numbers?
Yeah, sure. Numbers.
Yeah.
Numbers, because without numbers, we wouldn't be having these movies. So the budget for this movie was only $100 million.
Only.
Wow.
Only. Now.
And they shot in 57 days.
Yeah. Right.
That's another thing.
Let's keep in mind that this movie has only been around for a couple of days, and it also had to go up against Barbie. So, as of this recording, Oppenheimer has made $95 million. So it's basically close to its budget.
Okay.
And that's only one weekend. Imagine what it does in the next 3.
We, at this time of recording, we're 4 days out from release?
Yeah.
Yes.
Something like that?
4 days out. Now, to give it an idea of what other movies have done, Mission Impossible, which came out the week prior, as of this day, has only made $120 million. Now, guys, keep in mind, all these numbers are domestic. That's why they sound small. It's not worldwide. If you wanted worldwide numbers, we're talking Oppenheimer has made 209 and Mission Impossible has made 373. So this is a no contest that this movie is going to make it to the $1 billion club along with Barbie.
I believe so. Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is very clearly like Cillian Murphy's defining role. Like I don't see him having a bigger role, like a bigger movie attached to him, like for a starring role, like moving forward. Like this, I feel like this is really his. This is the like down like years from now, like when you're remembering like movies he did, this is going to be the first one you think of.
Well, now hang on a second, because that's not also to say that he's peaked at this point. I don't believe he's peaked yet.
I'm not saying he's peaked, but I'm talking about like iconic roles and big movies. Like you have like I'm talking about like a definitive role for him. You know, like even if he has movies where he's better, this is like his starring movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is going to be his iconic movie.
Johnny, I will disagree with you on that. Like in terms of movies, this is probably it. But you want to talk about his defining role? Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, but that's a TV show. That's TV
show. We're not splitting hairs here. We're talking about defining characters. Johnny decides to say movies. I'm talking about a defining
I think Oppenheimer's
character.
Bigger.
I
think Oppenheimer's going to be bigger, more iconic at least. I'm not saying like the Peaky Blinders isn't iconic. I've seen a ton of people talk about it and everything, but like Oppenheimer is like it's definitely more of like a cultural phenomenon than Peaky Blinders is. Peaky Blinders is like a successful Netflix show. This is like I said, a worldwide phenomenon type of thing, and people will remember this over Peaky years from now.
There's something that I was thinking about because with Cillian Murphy, here's the funny thing. I believe the first movie he did with Christopher Nolan was the Batman trilogy, right?
Batman Begins.
Yeah,
bro.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I feel he also, in case nobody else knows, he actually went on to
audition.
He wanted to be Batman.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
And
He
Nolan
auditioned for Batman.
didn't like him as Batman, but he's like, I could put you as this. And I feel like Nolan also said to him in a way, stick with me, kid, because I feel like we're going to do some great stuff in the future. And he put him in all the Batman movies. I think he put him in Tenet,
Inception.
Inception. So he's been in so many movies that Christopher Nolan has done. I feel like Christopher Nolan's like, you weren't Batman, but I'll find a movie where I'm going to make you the biggest thing ever. And here we are.
You did it.
The first movie he finally did with Christopher Nolan, where he's the lead and steals the freaking show.
Yeah,
that's also true. Yeah.
But like he's definitely his his Johnny Depp, like the Johnny Depp / Tim Burton relationship. Like he's become his go-to for sure.
And you guys heard Scorsese. And you guys heard Matt Damon's story. Like, he shared a very personal story that he was in couples counseling with his wife, and they made a deal that he was going to take a break, take time off from acting, unless Christopher Nolan called.
Lo and behold.
Wow.
That's funny, actually.
That's the first time I'm hearing that. Wow, that's insane.
And Cillian Murphy explained it the way that Christopher Nolan likes to ask the actors that he wants in his movies, that he'll be so well into development of his movie, he'll just call them out of nowhere, and that's how he operates. Like, that's how he called Robert Downey Jr. That's how he called Matt Damon, like, who's about to take a break to the happiness of his own wife, and now he's in probably the biggest movie of 2023, maybe the biggest movie of the century, one of the biggest movies of all time. I know it may sound like recency bias, but I don't think I'm wrong in that regard.
Like I said, this is going to be a movie that's going to be remembered for a long time. And the person, the historical person, Oppenheimer, is now a household name thanks to this movie, I think. So that's always a good thing when people just know their history. That's another thing too. Like, I feel like what made this story so great is that, like, I feel like I came out of the theater learning something. Like, I had like more of an understanding of like not just what went into the making of the bomb, but like how like their thinking worked and how the physics worked behind it. Like, oh, there's actually like a chance of like the entire atmosphere igniting from what they're doing. Like, that's what mutually assured destruction actually means. Like, now, like I see like when we say like, oh, we're going to destroy ourselves, it's not just because there are a lot of atomic bombs going off. Like, no, one atomic bomb can literally just end the world. So a little bit of an existential crisis coming out of the movie theater, but which is funny because like Barbie also had like an existential crisis theme going on too, and this was like a different, darker tone, like a different version of that. But both these movies make you think for sure. But any final thoughts?
One more fun fact: I believe this is the second World War II associated movie that Christopher Nolan has made. He had Dunkirk that came out in 2017.
Cillian Murphy was in that too.
There you go.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Makes sense to me. So Christopher Nolan keeps hitting home runs with these history bio movies, tying it all together. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean,
well, listen, now everyone has learned something from watching this movie about the Manhattan Project and how influential it was to ending World War II. Yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah. So, with that said, those were our thoughts on Oppenheimer. Again, me being the big Christopher Nolan fan that I am, I think this is his best movie yet, or at least his biggest movie yet. But what do you guys think? Let us know down below. Did you like this movie? Was it a little too long for you? Were you able to keep up with like all the moving parts of the story? Let us know down below in the comments. And while you're down there, give us a like, give us a subscribe, ring that bell so whenever we do make new content, you get notified. We love all that stuff. And until then, we out. Roll credits.
Roll credits.
I'm still shook.